While sane people around the world welcome the March 18th discussion between Presidents Trump and Putin as the next necessary and historic step to peace, the dinosaurs of the old globalist order are acting like they have just seen the incoming meteor that will end their existence. And they aren't wrong. This is Susan Kokinda with your Midweek update. And before I turn to the extraordinary developments of the past 2 days, highlighted by the Trump-Putin phone call and Vice President J.D. Vance's speech to the American Dynamism Conference, I want to welcome our astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, back to Earth. I hope they can stay, because given the disposition of some of our crazier federal judges, this headline from the Babylon Bee might not turn out to be satire. When I was watching Sean Hannity's interview with Elon Musk last night after the successful splashdown, I was really struck by the pride and awe exhibited by Hannity, not just in what SpaceX and NASA had accomplished, but that Hannity expressed his own joy in looking through his telescope at the stars and the planets and the majesty of space. To me, it is a reawakening of that kind of passion that says America is back. I'm going to return to some of the other things that Musk said in that interview when I talk about J.D. Vance's speech. But turning to the Trump-Putin discussion, I want to first locate that in the context of a remarkable speech given by DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard to the Raisina Conference in India yesterday. Toward the end of her speech, Tulsi quoted extensively from President Kennedy's famous American University address given on June 10, 1963. Let us examine our attitude toward peace itself. Too many of us think it's impossible, but that is a dangerous defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. Any man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. Those words struck me for two reasons. One, that they were delivered just a few months before President Kennedy's assassination. And those words and the rest of the speech were a direct challenge to the Anglo-American architects of the Cold War, represented by, among others, Winston Churchill, Lord Bertrand Russell, and the Dulles brothers. And while the Cold War itself ended, the world has been kept in the grip of the same geopolitical evil, deliberately pitting nations and peoples against each other in the interests of perpetual war for the past 62 years since that assassination. Obviously, the issue of that assassination is in the headlines in its own regard, given yesterday's declassification of the JFK documents as ordered by Donald Trump. It's going to take a few days at least to analyze the significance of what's in those documents, and I'm going to leave that to Barbara's Saturday Wrap and others to do it justice. But the second thing to hit me was the optimism in JFK's speech. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable. In previous updates, I've spoken of how we are in a different strategic and political geometry, a different phase space, if you will. One of the characteristics of this new geometry is optimism. Optimism born of a truthful understanding of man's role as a creative partner in the development of God's universe. That is also the characteristic of the sovereign nation state. And I strongly recommend that you watch Tony Pappert's Saturday class about that on the Promethean Action website. Now, one of the characteristics of the globalist geometry is that we are no better than animals, to be manipulated by our passions and at the mercy of our betters, who may decide to start a war or cull us when necessary. That certainly is how they have made the Mideast a killing field. Now look at yesterday's Trump-Putin talks in that light. The 2-hour discussion between the two presidents is being driven by the optimistic geometry of two leaders who represent the interests of their own nations, not the globalists, and who want peace, not perpetual war. I'm sure most of you watching this know the outlines of what occurred and have seen the White House or Kremlin readouts. What was immediately accomplished was a 30-day cessation in strikes on energy infrastructure, further talks on maritime security, and the continuation of bilateral talks conducted through the establishment of expert groups. But Trump and Putin went beyond Ukraine. The two presidents spoke of working together to solve the crises in the Mideast and of increased bilateral economic agreements. Working with Russia is going to be vital in the complexities of the Mideast crisis, where you have all too many parties who remain tools in the British geopolitical toolkit, like the Netanyahu government and all of the spawns of the Muslim Brotherhood. President Trump elaborated on his talk with Putin in an interview with Laura Ingraham last night. Ingraham asked the president about the criticisms leveled against him, that he has more in common with Putin than he does with the globalists or Zelensky. Trump said, "Well, I am a nationalist. I'm an American nationalist. And that is the basis for forging good relations with other countries." Ingram's efforts to pose a Russia-China partnership as a threat to the U.S. were essentially deflected by Trump, despite some of the headlines you're going to see. Trump kept insisting that President Xi wants to get along, that Russia wants to get along, and that we will have good relations with all of these leaders. I might add that Putin's spokesman, Peskov, said that the world is a lot safer after this phone call. This truly is a turning point in history. So take that outcome and take that Trumpian optimism and compare it to the stable of pundits and analysts who look at each twist and turn in the negotiations, whether on Ukraine or on the even more complicated crises in the Mideast, to make definitive assertions about how Trump has sold out to the neocons or the Zionists or has bought into an inevitable war with Iran. Two descriptions come to mind when looking at these folks. I know I'm dating myself, but suddenly, former Vice President Spiro Agnew's turn of phrase, "the nadering nabobs of negativism," sprang to mind. But a more scientific description of this problem is empiricism, where you take what is hitting your senses at any given moment as actual reality, and you ignore the process generating those perceptions. The reality generating the current dynamic is Donald Trump's historic and almost unbelievable, unwavering commitment to overturn decades of globalist policies of war and financialization. Now, I'm going to save myself a little time in having to repeat this in response to people in the comments section who are going to say that Trump has already sold out to the globalists, to the neocons, to big tech, or the Zionists. Do you really think he has stood up to indictments, impeachments, and assassination attempts to sell out? In passing, I've noticed that many of those who make those comments fall in the category of summer soldiers and sunshine patriots and didn't support Trump till late in the game, if at all. Now let's turn to J.D. Vance's extraordinary speech to the American Dynamism Conference in Washington, D.C. yesterday. The vice president gave a master class in American system principles, and I recommend that you watch it. We have a link on the Promethean Action website. He started with a quote from Pope John Paul II's encyclical, Laborem Exercens. "Through work, man must earn his daily bread and contribute to the continual advance of science and technology, and above all, to elevating unceasingly the cultural and moral level of the society within which he lives." This was an extraordinary document to which Lyndon LaRouche has often referred in his writings on economics. The vice president used it as a springboard to make the point, as the Pope and LaRouche did, that it is the advance of science and technology which elevates society. Vance took up the apparent contradiction between what he called the tech optimists versus the populists. Some of the latter, the populists, who worry about technology eliminating jobs. He made clear that the problem instead comes when you operate within a system of globalization and cheap labor and the suppression of technology through regulation, and I would add through the green ideology. He said, "Both our working people, our populists, and our innovators gathered here today have the same enemy. The solution, I believe, is American innovation, because in the long run, it's technology that increases the value of labor innovations, like the American system and the interchangeable parts revolution it sparked, or Ford's moving assembly line that skyrocketed the productivity of our workers. Vance concluded, "That's what I really wanted to talk about today, why innovation is key to winning the worldwide manufacturing competition, to giving our workers a fair deal and reclaiming our heritage via America's great industrial comeback." I believe that's what we're on the cusp of, a great American industrial comeback, because innovation is what increases wages. This is really quite extraordinary. Not only did Vance refer to the American system in those remarks, albeit fleetingly, but he showed a comprehension of how breakthroughs in science and technology enhance what Alexander Hamilton, the father of the American system, called the productive powers of labor, and with it, higher living standards. You can learn more about this in our ebook, What Donald Trump Can Learn from the American System 2.0. Elon Musk echoed that in his interview with Hannity last night. Hannity asked if it had been a mistake to slow down our space program because it slowed the pace of scientific breakthroughs and innovation. Musk said space travel forces such breakthroughs, and that by establishing a base or a city on Mars, we'll have to overcome so many challenges that it'll drive it. It will serve as a forcing function for the development of new technologies that will have a tremendous benefit to people on Earth. I don't think that it is coincidental that in the ongoing development of U.S.-Russia relations, that Putin confidant Kirill Dmitriev, who is the head of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, recently said that Russia wants to work with Musk and SpaceX on a mission to Mars. So here we are into week 8 of the Trump revolution, and what a week it has been. The Trump-Putin talk, the successful splashdown, JD's speech, the release of the JFK files. I think we here at Promethean Action are uniquely situated to locate all of this for the very reason of our name. To be Promethean is to cherish the power of the human mind, to act on the universe, and to optimistically act on the future. I hope you will support us by becoming a monthly member. This has been your Midweek Update. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.